I was about to say good morning, but I think I mean good afternoon. Just about good afternoon. Look, oh, I can see Garant there. And see Chloe, that's good, because Chloe's driving our slides.
Good afternoon, Fiona.
Hello. Hey, well, I think we're all very keen and a few minutes early, so we'll give people hopefully a chance to join, otherwise we'll be small and perfectly formed. Let's see who I know. Oh, hello, Carol. Who do I know on here?
Can you all see the slides okay?
I can definitely see them, and I'm just admiring the colours. It's the first time I've seen them used properly on a slide deck. They look really good.
Very vibrant.
Yeah. Yeah, they are nice. See, I'm just trying to make my screen a bit bigger. There we are. Spring. It doesn't feel much like spring here today. I don't know about anybody else.
No.
Absolutely freezing.
Pretty miserable.
Yes, my daughter found out last week that netball post half term is outside no matter what. So she was blue for about 3 days.
I think that would make me give it up.
Oh yes, that conversation has been had. Yeah. Oh dear. I have the bizarre situation where my laptop runs somewhere between 4 and 6 minutes slow, so I can never rely on it for the clock, or if I do, I'm late to everything I ever attempt to attend, so I have to constantly look at my phone to see what time it is. I'm sure there's a fix for that.
A new laptop, I think, is a fix, isn't it?
Well, yeah, that could be a part of it, yes. Now, by my reckoning, there's a minute to go, and I think we'll give it a minute or so just to let people join. I suspect there'll also be a few people out there looking for the newsletter and working out how to click. Because we did send a few invitations out, but I think there was a couple of methods for joining. It's a bit dark in this room. There's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. We're not allowed to be in control of our own lights in this building. They're on if you're in the room and moving, and off if you're not. So we have had a few interesting moments over the past couple of years where all of a sudden people start doing this on the screen and you end up with people waving back, but actually you're just getting the light to come on. So if I wave at you, I'm not waving at you. I'm just activating the lights.
It's better than Jon Snow House yesterday than Fiona, where the lights just decided to not work full stop, whether you're in the room or not.
Let's have a look. Right, I'm going to give it one more minute and then we'll get cracking. I think the numbers are creeping up slightly, but it's hard to see when you've got the slide deck up. It's like multitasking in the extreme.
20 people at the moment.
Yeah, there's 20 in at the minute, Fiona. Yeah. 22 as we've said that.
Oh, there's a likely story, Jennifer, with your camera not working. You're just in your pajamas, really, aren't you? I actually, and between us friends on this call, I actually did do the LMC meeting last night wearing the bottom of my pajamas, but with a work top. So there we are. We're all friends here now. Yeah. It was okay until my daughter came in and started pointing it out. Yeah, you wish. Yeah, I wish I was at home. Yeah. Right. Okay, we're gonna make a start because I don't think there'll be. I think it'd be pretty easy to pick up as we go along for anybody who's joining, who's perhaps been caught up in something this morning. So it's a while since I've had one of these Chris Whitty moments where you have to say next slide, please. I'm sure I've missed them. So my name is Fiona Adamson. I, by day, am the Chief Executive of the Hartlepool and Stockton Health GP Federation. And I'm one of the people who has been involved with the Primary Care Collaborative pretty much since the first conversations started to take place. So it's been, and I mean this genuinely, a bit of a labour of love over the past sort of year to 18 months. And I'm currently the co-chair of the collaborative with Mooney, who is otherwise known as Dr. Amir Munir, but that's his Sunday name. So can we just move on to the next one, please, Chloe? So we really appreciate your time today. We're just going to take you through a whistle-stop tour of the North East and North Cumbria Primary Care Collaborative. So this is the collaborative for the whole region, if you like. I know some people have smaller collaboratives going on in their places or their localities. We think it'll take about 40 minutes. And then there'll be an opportunity for question and answer at the end. So that's not a prompt not to ask any questions, so you can go early. I think it would make sense if we kept the questions for the end, if we could, unless there's anything particularly burning. I'll try and monitor the chat as well, but as I said, multitasking may be a step beyond me. If we can just have a little look at the agenda, thank you. So in a minute, I'll just talk you through our vision for the collaborative and what the journey's been like so far, and actually a bit of the why. What we're working on in terms of bringing the collaborative itself together, and then we'll get on to some of the really interesting stuff. So we've got a couple of the work that the work stream leads that we've been doing so far with us, just to talk to you about Pharmacy First, what's happened so far and the next steps, but then also around data and population health management as well. So we've got a bit more detail on two of those work streams, and then we can give you a broad idea of what some of the next steps will be. And the exciting thing is that we actually have year 2 funding. So I'm pleased you're all sitting down, because that was a bit of a shocker for us. And we really want to get lots of ideas, thoughts, questions about what we could and should be doing next. So that's what we're going to try and cover in the next few minutes. So if we just move on to the next, I see I didn't even have to ask. So our journey so far, do you know the question I'm asked most often when you mention a primary care collaborative, and by primary care, you know, we absolutely mean primary care, general practice, pharmacy, optometry, dentistry, all of us in it together, is why? And if I'm honest, I don't think I've got my elevator pitch quite off pat yet. So it isn't always the easiest question to answer. So I'm just going to try and summarise it for a second. And I think what brought us together was a shared sense of pride in what primary care can and does do for patients, and the idea that we didn't want in the new structures to get somehow lost because of the disparate nature of the way our businesses operate. You know, so the practices, the contractors, etc. Now, we all know the changes to the clinical commissioning groups, which had a particular impact on general practice, for example, where they were GP-led effectively, and moving into one integrated care board for a really large geographical area. So there's a lot of potential to get lost in that structure. Not that there's any intention for us to get lost, but we can be a little bit difficult to engage with and to deal with. So that was really one of the driving forces. So we tested that out with a few people last summertime, really, and got very positive responses. So I think in summary, we feel like, are we stronger together? Can we do better things for patients by supporting one another, or by doing things together because we understand a bit more what each sector does? And the answer to that question was most definitely yes. So we continued on with that journey. We think, so we are not an ICB body, but we want to be close to the ICB. We want to be a useful, critical friend for the ICB when new ideas come up, and we want to be in at the start of future strategies or future developments as far as possible. So that's I suppose the precursor to why we've been putting this work in. So coming to the middle, Yeah, if I could see you all on the screen, I'd ask you to raise your hands if you were a Star Wars fan, and I'd be doing this straight away. So we went through, those of us who were working on the communications work stream went through a bit of a short workshop, and it was a storytelling type workshop, and it used Star Wars as our theme. And we looked at how to create heroes and who the enemy was and what the end goal was and how we were going to get there. It was really good fun. I would highly recommend it. And we didn't come up with anything from a planet far, far away. We came up for the vision, which is there in the middle on your screen. I'm not going to read it out to you, but it's been through a few iterations. And I think the important thing is that we are a combined voice, that we're working together, that ultimately we want to make a difference to patients, to the people who live across the Northeast. And actually part of that will be sharing problems. Problem shared is a problem halved. We'll be trying to influence together. We'll be sharing things that work and good ideas. And then just briefly, the timeline on the right tells you, and time has flown, and I think probably there was some fun in there somewhere. We got together as a working group. We had the engagement meetings that I mentioned, and then those of us who almost a self-selecting group at that point, representatives from pharmacy, from optometry, from dentistry, and also from general practice via the LMC, from PCNCDs, and from GP federations. So all those groups got together around the table and sort of volunteered some time effectively. And we looked at what priorities could be, and we came up with a few things that we felt in the short term would make a difference, and really show what we could do. And we went with a short paper and a very nice smile to NENC, who had funded the provider collaborative, and NENC very kindly agreed that they should fund primary care in the same way as they'd done secondary care, and they did. So that was brilliant. So we've been able to have some project teams working with us, which has been absolutely invaluable. In fact, some of them are here today. And we've got some money for year 2, as I suggested. So we'd really like to hear from anybody here or anybody else you know offline, because we'll try and share this as to what you think we could be working on. Okay, so I'm gonna move into, I shouldn't say the boring bit because Neil's on the call and he's been working so hard on this part, and it's absolutely not boring, Neil. So in forming a collaborative, we really had to make sure we're a professional body, we're open, we're well structured, we're operating in a way that's transparent and fair. And so we needed to put in place some governance. So we had a small group working on a governance framework, which is just on the next slide. I haven't shared it here in detail. If anybody would like it and hasn't seen it, we can absolutely send it to you. Just stick your email address in the chat. What we've tried to do is look at what is the scope of the collaborative, where do we go and not go, and I think that's particularly important for those colleagues on the call who perhaps have statutory responsibilities like LMCs, LPCs, LDCs, LOCs. We are not there to replace those contractual conversations, those negotiations, those places where those bodies must be consulted. That's absolutely not what this is about. It might be about supporting those conversations in some way. It might be about giving a sort of stronger voice behind those conversations, but it's not a replacement body. So we've got scope defined. We think we have representation on the board from each of those sectors that I mentioned previously. One of the questions that is still bubbling under for some parts of the patch, I think it'd be fair to say a small sort of element, is how do we deal with geography, because we're so big. And we've been talking about this a lot, and I think the answer that we've come to so far is that people who sit on the board of this collaborative are not coming to represent just the place where they work. They are coming to represent all of their colleagues across the patch. So if you're a clinical director, for example, you would not go there representing Stockton, you would go there representing the views of all your colleagues. And that's something that we're in discussion about. So you won't be surprised to see that our colleagues in pharmacy, optometry and dentistry have confirmed that they're okay with this and they have their reps or they are nominating. General practice, always a bit more complex, aren't we? So general practice, we're still discussing, just trying to finalise that. And again, any questions, any thoughts afterwards, absolutely welcome. But we hope to have this sorted out by June, if not sooner. Okay, so I think that's probably more than enough from me for now. I'm going to hand you over to Garant, who's going to talk through, I'll let him introduce himself, and who's going to talk through some of the work that we've been doing in the pharmacy space.
Thanks, Fiona. Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Geraint. I'm the Chief Officer of Community Pharmacy North East North, formerly known as North of Tyne LPC. And I'm a community pharmacist by background, hence I'm here talking to you about the pharmacy work stream. Next slide, please. So just to try and keep things simple this afternoon, I'll try and break it down into three things, really. When we had that initial conversation that Fiona referred to back in September and we're looking for projects, one of the things that I put on the table was that working together across NENC, it would be a good idea if we could improve the referrals in from GP practice to what was then known as the Community Pharmacy Consultation Service, because we felt that would be a way by releasing capacity in the GP network. Obviously, during the lifetime of that project, things moved on greatly in that world, and the Pharmacy First service was announced, and actually it mobilised and went live on the 31st of January. So we slightly tweaked what we were doing, but the intent was probably still the same. It was to increase the uptake and the use by GP practice of the referral mechanism into pharmacy, and ultimately increase the uptake from the members of the public as well in using the pharmacy service. So we were one of the first projects out of the blocks, as we said at the time, and we did come across a few little challenges. One being the comms engagement piece around, how could we reach out to the network, and how would we let people know what we were doing. So we did host some webinars back in January and into February around Pharmacy First. And we had some challenges there, reaching out to the practices to make sure people are aware of it. But it was great to see that in the end, we had over 200 people attend, and we reached over 100 of the practices across North East North Cumbria. So comms and engagement was something we sort of raised as a bit of a challenge for the collaborative back then, as we need to be better at this. And some of these engagement events and the mail lists and the distribution list that we're capturing is all part of that work to make sure that we can reach the audience that we need to speak to, and the newsletter is part of that story as well. In the middle of the slide, we talk about pharmacy coaches. We'd had some success across the LPCs across NENC in previous years, where we'd had some small funding to have technicians working as the link between practices and pharmacy to promote some of these new services. And we managed to work with the Primary Care Collaborative to finalise an MOU that we were presenting to the ICB to look for further funding to enable us to bring on board more of these pharmacy coaches. And again, because the Primary Care Collaborative is in its infancy at the stage, we've managed to work out how the money could flow. And the great news is we've now got an MOU in place, and we've got agreements with NECs to help provide some of the additional coaching capacity. So we're in a really good place now to start mobilising this extra resource, and the mission being ultimately we want NENC to be one of the best, or the best ICB in the country for delivering pharmacy first and the referrals and how the patients use that. So we want to be famous for that particular service. On the right of the slide, we talk about maximising resources. What we found is, as with all new services, there tends to be an awful lot of information available, and what is the key bit that people need to read, or what's the minimum amount of information that people need to take in this busy world that we're at to enable it to become successful. So we've done some work around that. We've reached out and found some advocates that will support the message into the wider primary care. And I guess we've developed some of we've learned from the coaches of the past and developed some induction techniques and some induction plans to get people on board and on the ground quicker than it would normally take. So we're really quite excited because the agreement has just been signed last week, or sorry, the beginning of this week, with NENC, and we've got one of the launch meetings with the new coaches early next week. So I guess what that means is for the network across NENC is that over the coming weeks and months, you'll start to see these coaches available to you and your teams in terms of to help you unpick some of the myths around this new service, and to explore how you can make that work well in your practice, and ultimately open up the service to more and more of your patients across the country, across NENC. So what started as a project looking at just the small community pharmacy consultation service, obviously with the new 7 common conditions and the expanded treatments that we now have available through pharmacy, the project has grown. But the great news is the foundations that we've put in place will now enable us to go further and faster, I think, over the next coming months. I think that's enough from me now, and I'll say next slide so that somebody else, and questions at the end, I think, isn't it, Fiona?
Thank you, Geraint. And every time I pronounce your name, I try to do better, and I still never quite crack it.
Don't worry.
I think one of my reflections on what you've just described is so often we launch something and we leave it there, and we don't then try and tackle the issues, because things never go perfectly smoothly, do they? We don't live in a perfect world. And so I think the positive there is that we've launched it, we've learned from it, we've got some pockets of people doing brilliant stuff, and now we're going to try and spread that out and support people who are finding it more of a challenge. So the positive for me is we're not lobbing it over the fence and running away. It's something we're trying to work on to make better and better. So there we are. I must have got out the right side of the bed this morning. So thank you very much. I'm going to move on to the next work stream. And there's pictures in this one, and I have to say I find one of the reports that we're producing here, I absolutely love it, but I won't steal the thunder of the people who are coming along. So I know Kim's here, and I know Donna are here from NENC, who've been working on this project. I can't see Mooney on the list, but he might have snuck in. So I think I'll probably hand over to you, Kim, to start. That's my bet.
Yeah, no problem, Fiona. Thank you very much. Hi, everyone. I'm Kim Teasdale. I'm Head of Analytics at NENC, and I've got my colleague Donna Bradbury on from NENC as well. So Donna, feel free to chip in at any point, please. Next slide, please. So Donna and I supported what was commonly known as the Data and Population Health Management Workstream for the Primary Care Collaborative in 23-24, and we continue to link with Fiona and the team now. What I was asked to do is just summarise really what the main outputs and achievements that we did working with the collaborative, thinking about data and particularly population health management, and taking that approach around thinking about all the populations that the 4 pillars of primary care all mutually support, but maybe don't necessarily support in a joined up way. And I think, again, listening to Fiona's vision around the primary care collaborative, it's all about bringing those 4 pillars together to work closer together, and PHM's a really good mechanism of doing that. So if you look at just the infogram that we put on the left hand side, I was just going to talk at a high level about the things that we've achieved, which has been really, really great. So we've done 2 PHM type training sessions. So some of you might have been able to access those. Those were run in February and March of this year. We had good attendance at those. That was really talking about what do we mean by population health management, and how can it apply to where you are either in dental, optometry, GP practice, etc. And I think from our perspective, they're probably a useful thing to think about doing again, and really refreshing people's views around PHM. We also looked and delivered some specific PHM type support to South Durham Federation as a bit of a proof of concept. What we mean by that is, if you think about a population health management cycle, it's a change cycle. So it's about using data and analytics to identify cohorts across your population to then do either a clinical, social, economic intervention with, to either improve their health outcomes, look at socio-economic improvement for those cohorts as well. So we really took the initiative around the integrated neighbourhood teams work that was already going on, and supported South Durham Federation around broadening out some of the analytical methodologies that they could use in order to look at their populations. It worked well. What you can see on the screen there is just some feedback from the PCNs involved. And I think it's important to note, and Donna would kick me if I don't say this, is the data and the analytics is really important and it's really interesting, but equally is the change and the so what. So what are you going to do based on the analytics that you find out about your population? And I think that's a really good model and mantra to stick with. And the PHM approach can be applied to all aspects of work and projects. So it's an area for development and thinking about into 24-25 around how the collaborative want to apply that across the other pillars of primary care. However, the main limitation is the wealth of data that we have to support GP practice is a lot stronger than in the other 3 pillars of primary care. And I don't mean that as a criticism. It's more just a sort of a statement of where that data maturity position is. Because if the next thing that we were asked to do is that data exploration piece, so we have produced what we call like a data report, a data outcomes report that the collaborative now have. And basically what we did is a bit of a deep dive into dental, optometry and pharmacy data sources that we potentially could use to support taking a PHM approach. And the problem is that some of that data, although we can use it for a PHM perspective, it's not as detailed and not as rich. So I think there's some areas of development there that we can absolutely work with the collaborative on around understanding how we can improve that. But I think what we also need to accept is there's no such thing as a perfect data set. So what we've tried to do is be really realistic around what we could start with and what we already know about our populations as well. So it's always trying to take that pragmatic approach, which links to the next item. So what we did thinking about the 4 pillars of primary care is we actually mapped them. Got some visuals on the next slide, but we'll see that in a second. We actually mapped where, thanks Chloe, just stick on this one for a minute. We mapped all the 4 pillars of primary care, the locations, so dental, optom, pharmacy, GP practice, onto a map, but we looked at it through the lens of deprivation. So thinking about health inequalities, some of the more challenging communities that all 4 pillars of primary care are working with and delivering services to. And I think that will be a springboard into looking at the priorities into 24-25, where you can really look at where collaboratively across the 4 pillars, certain services and practices can start working together. And particularly we've used that through an INT lens with the health, the GP practice discussion, but that can be broadened out as well. We were also really lucky to work closely with Stephanie from an optometry perspective to do some eye care analytics, and we're doing a couple of bespoke webinars for hi Stephanie, you got your hand up. Hi. Yeah, we've done some bespoke analytics linking with Stephanie, and we're doing again a specific webinar linked to that to share that with that wider community out there. So that's been really interesting. And then the last thing that I'll finish on just at a high level was we did provide some analytical outputs to all the PCNs across the North East and North Cumbria. So the report I think Fiona was alluding to earlier was the Community of 1,000 report, which I'll talk a little bit about in a second. We produced a high level report to start people talking about their populations and showing different metrics. And then we also did a PHM resource guide and shared that across the PCNs as well. So next slide, please, Chloe. So we've just got some examples of the visuals. So left-hand side is the mapping, where we've looked at the four pillars of primary care locations, and then we've got the useful data sources as well. And any of these we can happily share and make available through the collaborative as well. If you just want to next slide, please, Chloe. So the last thing I just wanted to quickly show you, and again, you get this in the slides as well. So the concept behind the Community of 1,000 is imagining, it's thinking about proportional analytics. So it's saying actually for your population, so that might be the whole of the ICB, which is this report. So it covers 3.1 million patients, or it might be the, the registered GP practice list. it's saying actually if that was 1,000 people, sorry, apologies. If that was 1,000 people, how many people live in our most deprived communities? So for this, we can see 331 out of the 1,000 in NENC live in our top 20% most deprived communities. So again, there's a lot of information on this report, but it's a really good way to initially get people to start thinking about their populations. And we were able to do this for all the PCNs across NENC, and we can make that available across dental and optometry as well, because I think it's just a good way in of where you're looking at mutual populations where you're both serving those populations across your organisations as well. But happy to take any questions at the end about anything that we've done, and really looking forward to working with the collaborative into 24-25. I think that was my last slide.
I think it was, isn't it? Oh no, the data. Yeah, I was just going to say, do you mind, Kim, just before you move on from that one, do you mind pulling out a couple of other sort of metrics from the community of 1,000? Because I'm just conscious that the writing is so small. It might be worth just highlighting a couple more. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think thinking about our other colleagues across the 4 pillars, like thinking about the core 20+5 for children and young people, dental tooth decay is a key national priority. And I think if we're thinking about moving forward, that would be a key area where we could work with across dental and health colleagues to look at how you target certain cohorts of the population, because obviously the wealth and detail of information that GP practices have compared with dental colleagues who have quite transactional activity-based data, there is correlation there that we could help do some targeted work that would hit that national initiative. So for NENC, 1 out of every 9 3-year-olds have tooth decay on there, so that's quite a high statistic. Do you know what I mean? So that was one. The way the colour coding works is the yellow metrics tend to be socioeconomic type, so we've got education, employment, household based metrics, and then we've got the blue ones, which are what we would call lifestyle risk factors, so modifiable risk factors around smoking, alcohol, physical activity and obesity. And then the green ones are the core national deliverables around core 20+5, and a couple of frail and housebound metrics in the bottom right hand corner as well. I think the main thing that we tend to pull out is around the deprivation and the life expectancy gap. If you look at the top right hand corner, life expectancy at birth, there's 9 years difference for females between the least deprived and the most deprived in life expectancy across NENC, and that's massive, and it's 11.3 years for men. So any initiatives we can do to work better together collaboratively around that life expectancy gap, and that's, we all know that there's a lot of focus on health outcomes, but that's social, economic, you know, those life risk factors that affect people's health outcomes are absolutely key, aren't they? So I think we've got a real opportunity to do some good joint initiatives. Not saying that hasn't been done before, but the collaborative's a brilliant vehicle for doing some of that, using some of the data, isn't it?
Yeah,
Is that useful? No problem.
It was. I didn't know that colour coding, so I've learned something as well.
Yeah. And I think the last slide just draws out some of the key points around the data report, but we can share the data report. I think really it's about having quite a rich citizen level data set, because what that enables you to do is look at holistic analysis around a person rather than aggregate level around service stats. And what we can do is understand not only how comorbidities and risk factors affect people's health outcomes, but being able to build in, if we can improve pharmacy, dental, optometry data as well, that will give a much richer picture around people's health. One of the areas we're working with Stephanie on is around thinking about how identification of low vision cohorts across the population potentially could then be flagged better with other services, because then it's falls prevention, it's other things that potentially could help that cohort of patients moving forward as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Kim, and your voice held out.
Yeah, sorry, it's when you talk a lot, my throat was drying up, but thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. So I hope that gives you just a really some flavour of the kind of work we've been doing. And I can see, it's funny, isn't it, when you're presenting, you can't quite see the whole screen, but I can see another couple of colleagues from the working group who are here with us today as well, so they might want to chip in and add something when we get to the Q&A. So next steps and questions. I'm going to just mention briefly communications, because I think we talked earlier about how difficult it is. So we've got 33 people on here today. On the left-hand side, our potential membership, if you like, of the Primary Care Collaborative, I mean, it runs to the thousands. So it runs to the thousands, and we all have our own individual ways of communicating. And it differs whether you're in a GP practice or whether you're a dentist or whether you're an optometrist, etc. So I think it's fair to say that we are trying new things. We've published our first newsletter, which might be where you found this invite. We have an email address on the right there where you can drop us a line, you know, at any time with anything you want to ask, and we'll always try and get back to you really quickly. We are looking at a website, not at this point for anything to be public facing, but really just for you to go to if you wanted any more information on anything we've talked about. So we're building that coming soon. I put in the purple, is that purple or is it pink? I'm not sure. In the middle, I snuck a bullet point on at the bottom because I have a real vision for a primary care conference where we might be able to get together in the Northeast and hear about some of the brilliant things colleagues are doing, celebrate some of our successes, feel proud to be in primary care, etc., etc. So please don't hold me to it because it needs funding and planning and organising, but I do think that that would be something that instead of having to traipse to London or to Manchester, we might be able to do our own thing in the Northeast. So yes, Chloe's just put in the chat, there is a WhatsApp code there and it works. So who knew you could scan a code to join a WhatsApp? So you can scan that code as we speak. And if nobody does, my phone will be silent and then I'll be sad. So I won't be sad when you're waking me up in the middle of the night with random thoughts, will I? So it is another way of trying to engage with people on an ongoing basis, a quick and easy way to get views, to be able to share things, to share links to things, all those sorts of things. So please feel free to share that wherever you like. It's available to anyone to join, and we're hoping to use that as one of our engagement methods. And if not many people join, there's about 30 of us on there at the moment, then it can be quiet. So it'll have the distinction of being a quiet WhatsApp group, and we all like them, don't we? So yes, so a few different ways of trying to communicate with you, hopefully some face-to-face later in the year. Okay, a quick flavour of what we're going to be doing next, and that's my last slide. So the first bullet point is a very short one, but a very important one. So the working group itself, we probably run to about 15 people or so across all 4 pillars. We did our best last year for the autumn time to come up with some things that we thought would be appropriate. This time we'd like to get more input before we make some decisions on what we could do next with some of the project funding that we'll have at our disposal. So we really want to hear from you. We have been given a couple of projects from the ICB, and I say that with some, what's the word, almost trepidation, but a lot of pride, because one of the things that we originally said was we'd like to be in control of our own destiny a little bit more. So the idea that we would have strong voices on the digital strategy group, and also that we as a project would be asked to develop a workforce strategy for primary care for the North East and North Cumbria. Slightly daunting asks, but wow, how brilliant to have been asked to do that, as opposed to have something passed to us to comment or consult on. So I think that's a really good. Oh, somebody's perhaps not quite on mute who thinks they are. Hope you're not telling us all your secrets. So interested to hear your views on whether you think they are interesting priorities to have been given, and also what you think priorities should be going forward. But actually, any questions you've got on anything you've heard today, yeah, now is your chance. I think we'll take the slides down. I'm losing my own voice now. And then we might be able to see each other a little bit better. Oh.
How do I take the slides down? How do I do that?
You should have a little button that says stop sharing somewhere on your screen. Now don't do what I do, which is click the red button, which looks very tempting but actually makes you leave. I'd be a rich woman if I knew how many times I'd done that. It might be at the bottom somewhere, Chloe, is it?
Oh, I've got it. I've got it.
That's me leading you up the garden path. Right, okay. Now this is where I'm going to have to do a radio announcer filling type if nobody's got any questions. So now we've taken the slides down, I can see that we have a couple of our clinical director colleagues with us who've been working on the working group. So we've got Natalie up in Newcastle and Rajiv, who's in South Durham, where they've been using some of those reports in anger. I don't know if there's anything either of you want to add at this point. I didn't mean to put you on the spot, but I just did.
I'll say something just to fill some time while people are thinking of questions, Fiona. Well, I thought that was a really lovely summary of how far we've come and the work that's been ongoing, and a good bit of information about the couple of projects that we've made some progress with. And I think you were right to describe it as a labour of love, because you, Fiona, must, at this opportunity, take the opportunity to thank you for all your work that you've done over the last 18 months or so, because myself and Rajiv and others only really got involved in October, but I know you and John and Mooney had, done a lot of prep work before then. So we have come an enormously long way. I think there's still a way to go. And probably, as you say, this is the first of more engagement events to try and get people interested and involved. And it's challenging, isn't it? The representation of the group is proving a little bit challenging, but I'm sure we can overcome that. And in the next couple of months, there'll be lots of discussions amongst general practice. I know our poor colleagues in pharmacy, optometry and dentistry are sick to death, probably hearing my voice going on about how we're going to organise the GP part of the representation, but we will get there, and hopefully in a way that makes people feel that this is a valid group that properly represents people, and that people feel they have got a route in to pass their thoughts via the PCC to the ICB and others. So it's all good. I can't say anything else. That's as much filler as I can manage.
Don't put us two on the radio then. Yeah. Rajiv.
Thanks, Natalie. I think that's a good summary of what we've done so far, and then I think it's good to see what has happened. When you look at the presentation and the summary, it's good to see what work has happened in the last many months. And because when we go through the meetings, it feels like sometimes go forward with all the things what we just talking about, the same thing. But I think it looks like we've come a long, long way. Looking back with the summary and everything. So I think it's probably historic moment to see that all the 4 pillars are coming together. I think that probably not happened much in the past, and with one vision to be representing primary care in an appropriate way, and also being that helpful body to ICB, and very rightly said, that critical friend who could represent and ask the right questions and have the right checks in place and things like that, which is very good actually. And then that great vision of Fiona, you said about we all come together as what did you say about that? Almost like a event to have it all together, showcase event or something like that, which is fantastic. I think that's how it should be. And to be honest, more and more we see people have to travel further afield, like to go to London and all that for these events. And why not we do something like that? It'd be a great vision to come all together and do it. And I think now that the foundation is laid, and now I think the progress should be quicker, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Now that the framework, governance framework took time, and a lot of effort gone from Neil and the likes of NENC people, loads of efforts went in, and Kim has done an enormous work. And I don't know, without saying, I think John and Fiona, I think did fantastic work in the background doing all that. And solid foundation's been laid. I think we need to just build on it on the projects to come. Bringing real representation and work, making more progress and help for our sectors. I think the challenge is because of the size of the ICB, the biggest in the country, how we engage our community, let alone our colleagues. The community needs to know that we are there for them, type thing as well, which is great. It's exciting times to look forward to.
Thank you. That was a very, very positive contribution. Thank you very much. And I think I've certainly learned an enormous amount about how, community pharmacies operate, for example, and what the funding model is. And when we first came together as a group, we had all 4 pillars in a room in Sunderland, and we're not underestimating the size of the challenge here. We're being positive about what could be achieved, but goodness me, we operate in difficult times. And it was hard to decide, quite frankly, who had it the toughest. I think the dentists took it on the day, but I think general practice and community pharmacy and optometry are, they're coming up on the rails all the time. So there's got to be something in it. We are stronger if we're all supporting each other than we would have been if we didn't have those relationships as a starting point. So. Okay, I really don't think I can fill any more. And are there no questions? Or you can make comments. You can point out things that you don't like, or any of the above. You don't have to, of course. Okay.
Actually, Fiona,
yes.
I need to know whether your phone is pinged with the WhatsApp group. You're keeping us on tenterhooks. Oh. I might have to join again just to, give you something to do.
I know. Let me look down the list and see who I know. Come on, Tara. You need a new WhatsApp group in your life. Yeah, just to prove it to us. No, I think people are keeping their powder dry. That's what it is. They're going to get the slides out and have a read and think about it. So we will do that. We will send the slides out to you. There is another event. So if you want to go back to your place of work and say to your colleagues, goodness, you missed a treat there. Well, don't worry, they haven't missed out. On the 2nd of May, we are doing a 6:30 event just to make sure that, people who are busy during the working day can catch up. Steph's going to come in. I didn't realise you were there, Steph. You haven't got your Sunday name on your list.
Sorry, it's this new Teams. It's totally messed everything up. I don't know quite why. Well, there's a question in the chat. That's what I was just highlighting.
Thank you.
But also just to say hi, if you do have any questions, you're very welcome to direct to me for optometry via the collaborative, because that's going to be the best way of coordinating, I think.
Yeah, brilliant. Thank you. So there we are. We have our optometry rep on here all the time, and I didn't even know, or one of. So the question is, thank you, Tara. Yeah. The question is, who should we approach within the PCN for a copy of the stats? So unfortunately, that good old post box, the clinical director, we quite often end up using our poor clinical directors as post boxes, don't we? So the slides have gone out to them. Now, I have to say the database of clinical directors across the Northeast is a thing to behold and might not be completely up to date. So if you would like to see them, just ping us a message into the inbox and we'll get across your locality if you let us know where you are. It might take us a little while if there are a few, but I'm sure we can. It's not secret information. It's quite difficult to cascade it widely. There we are. And Kim's kindly put the email address in. Rajiv?
Yeah, no, I've just said to so Joe is my business manager here. Just said I think South Durham Health community interest company or federation who covers Easington and Sedgefield kindly are working on this with PCN in mind, because these statistics come to life when we have the PCN stats, so we can work on those specific geography which are unique, having unique challenges to our PCN. So it's good to see the wider picture, but I think could be addressed more as a locality, either Easington or PCN per se. I think they're working on the background, and we should have those stats. So I'm sure Natalie and all probably could do the similar work as well, which would be great for locality work. Absolutely.
Excellent. Okay. Right, Natalie.
Just on the community of 1,000 again, in our working group the other week, I was querying, I don't think I've seen that email. A couple of my PCN colleagues said that they hadn't seen them in Newcastle, and Kim very kindly went back and did a whole lot of extra work to check that the emails had been sent out. And there were, minor, a couple of people not on the list, but my email had come to me, I think, like 6th of December. And I think it just got lost because it's not necessarily a recognisable email address. So I was just going to mention something around either in the next newsletter or on the WhatsApp, or in any way that we perhaps highlight again, possibly resend the information again. But I think it's been lost in the melee because people weren't expecting that information to come out. So I think if we can signpost PCN clinical directors that this is coming or this has come, search back, have a look for it. I think that would be quite an effective way to do it, because I'm part of the working group and I missed the so goodness knows how everybody else fared. So that was just something that has occurred to me.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Geraint?
Yeah, I was just wondering if how freely available the data is, or how is there any concerns for it being cascaded widely? Because I'll be honest, I'm wondering if the pharmacy teams would quite like to see some of that as well, in terms of opening up a conversation with them. And again, we got PCN clinical leads, but again, if I was thinking about my particular pharmacy and the population I operate in, it'd be quite useful to see that. And you could think, do you know what, there is a gap. There's there might be ideas that come out from it, but people are saying, how do I adapt my pharmacy to the population that we serve? That a lot of people probably have done it already, but that population of 1,000 report does make you think slightly differently.
Yeah, and I wonder if we could badge it slightly differently. Are you going to say something?
To be honest,
similar,
I had
Steph?
slightly similar. I had similar thoughts, even if it was more from that overarching view from our local optical committee's footprints, rather than right down to each PCN, but just having a better understanding of the locality and the people that we're supporting would definitely help.
Sounds like this is going to form one of our future priorities, doesn't it, to try and get the data out more widely. Kim?
I think just from a practical perspective, from what we've learned is there aren't any concerns about it's aggregate level data. A lot of the indicators are publicly available. Some come from radar, but they're aggregated. But I think what we could do is work with the other pillars of primary care and think about the geographies that would be best delivered at, because I think the power comes from, if you're talking to a PCN, look at the PCN report together, because it's all about, like, we know that if you don't action it or don't have that structure around it, that's where the real power comes. But actually grouping up around LOCs or whatever, we can do some work around thinking there may be the sub-geographies, because we can do that. Obviously, we've looked at the ICB and PCNs, but we can do place and other groupings as well, if that would be beneficial.
What's the new term? Integrated development teams or something?
Yeah, INTs, integrated neighbourhood teams, isn't it?
I think it's bigger than that, though, isn't it?
Integrated neighbourhood working now,
last
isn't
month.
it? Always new initials coming along to baffle us.
We love an acronym. We love an acronym.
We do.
So could we see a world where this was a tool that I could access via a website? I could pull down what I need for me. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's where the power, because I think people trying to find it in an inbox when they think about it is probably, you want to be able to find it when you want to look for it. So there might be something in there that to make it available. That's why I asked about whether it was public, because on a website it's available to everybody, but if it's public data and it's not an issue, you know.
No, it's but it's not all public data. So obviously there are some limitations there. But yeah, we are looking to put it into a dashboard type delivery model, because obviously as a flat PDF it loses some, because the other challenge we get is around benchmarking and being able to look at this place compared with that place. So again, that's all in train. But yeah, completely agree. I think it would be beneficial to do that, definitely.
Okay. Well, I think that's a really good point to end on, because I think we started talking about the reason for a collaborative fundamentally is because we are better placed together to look after people who live in the Northeast. So if we know what's going on for people who live in the Northeast, which is what the data shows us, then again, we're better placed to help them. So thank you so much to those of you who've joined. We'll circulate the slides. Please get in touch. That's exactly what we'd like you to do. Join the WhatsApp group, send us an email, and send us through your ideas if anything comes to you over the next few days. So thank you very much, and enjoy your lunch if you get one.
Thanks, bye.
Thanks, Fiona.
Bye.